Hello everybody. As you'll know, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth came out in February of this year. It's now many people's choice for Game of the Year. Voting is still ongoing, so we'll find out. However, it's just received a major graphics overhaul with the release of the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, what do I mean by massive graphics overhaul? Well, cast your minds back to launch. You'll remember that there's a little bit of a bumpy ride. So, Final Fantasy Rebirth, or Rebirth as I'll refer to it for the rest of this video, launched with performance settings and graphics settings. Now, graphics would lock your game at 4K, would deliver around 30 frames per second, and then you had performance, which would aim for the hallowed ground of 60 frames per second, but with downscaling in terms of resolution, so it was running around 1920 by 1080. Other videos out there go into this in a bit more depth. As you can see, just to refresh, this is what graphics mode looked like. It came in a smooth or sharp version. This is currently sharp we're looking at, and these two modes attempt to do a bit of, trickery and magic to make the game look as good as it can, whilst giving you some frame rates. So we saw a little clip there with the draw distance. A lot of this on the kind of the world map mode, which is where we are at the moment, differentiated from combat, which we'll have a look at in a minute, is kind of trying to hide the fact that there's an illusion of large areas, large draw distances. Each zone, so this is the grasslands, is designed to offer as much of it without load times or drawing in. And it does a good job of that on the whole. When we look at the next one, Smooth, it hides a lot of sharpness and it really descales, but it gives you a little bit more responsiveness in the controls. And here we go, we'll have a look at some combat. I personally, my playthrough of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I went for graphics because I've got a 4K monitor. I wanted to see the game looking as best as it can. But that unfortunately meant I was locked at the 30 frames, which is quite frustrating. I don't think it really took away from my enjoyment of the game, but there was enough there that made me want to upgrade to the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now that product really is not for everyone. I think you've got to have a real niche itch. In this case for me, my interest is trying to get the best graphics and the highest frame rates. It's just a bit of a hobby / obsession. I'm very lucky in that my PC gaming, my PC build is good enough to give me decent frame rates in all the games I play, so I want to see that replicated in my console games. I'm very fortunate in this respect, and your mileage, your individual kind of interest in it is going to vary. I saw one comment earlier saying, it's a waste of money. That it may be, but for me at this point in my life, I want to have a look at it. So now the video is moving over on to the Smooth. This is for me the worst of all worlds. I think it looks pretty poor, and it makes the character models look just look very, very foggy and washed out. Now, I know for a fact a lot of people really do value responsiveness, especially in the combat modes of this game, and they would have played the game like that. And there are kind of various tricks. I think there's a really good Maximilian Dude video where he uses a separate HDMI upscaler to take the downgraded signal, upscale it, and smooth it out. But as the solutions go, it wasn't great. I'm not saying the game is under-optimized. I think when the demo dropped in January, or February was it, there was definitely a sense that the game wasn't maybe the game we were being shown in the trailers. I personally reckon that's either a PS5 build they had early or a PC build. Obviously, this is on Unreal Engine 4, so we're kind of at the end of that engine. It's not really going to advance more. The real kind of interesting stick or twist for Square Enix is whether they decide to move it on for Unreal Engine 5, or whether they use the advantage of having this engine built, the world built, the assets built, and have the third part come out in UE4. So we're now in graphics mode. The game is more sluggish. It's running at 30 frames. I think that's quite apparent. You're getting less of the draw distance and the pop-ins at this mode, and that's where some of the processing is going. So especially in the grasslands, there's a lot of foliage, a lot of pop-up, kind of flowers and leaves and details that the game feeds in as it goes. But largely it's all right. Now the combat, as we see in the scene, it's a little bit slower, not as fluid. And I think that was one of the things, because Final Fantasy VII Rebirth had been quite well optimized on the PS4, and the combat was quite fluid, even at the lower resolutions. It was a bit of a shock to go from that, or integrate on PS5 to this. A little bit of a worry. But anyway, that's the PS5 as was. Let's jump over to the PS5 Pro. So again, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PS5 Pro has 4 settings. It's got your graphics mode, which we're looking at now, so this aims to just maintain the 4K resolution. Best graphics fidelity. It has a performance sharp and smooth, where we aim to push the frame rate up, which I've not captured today because they largely look like the existing PS5 footage. And then we have versatility. And I think versatility is the first kind of wow moment with this console for me. As you see graphics though, you get a real nice 4K, it's very sharp, lighting's good, it looks good. Pretty happy with it. However, let's jump over to versatility now. Here we go, versatility. So this is the first time I really said, wow, it is noticeably smoother. I'm always a bit unsure whether the capture, so I'm using a Elgato 4KX capture card. You're never sure if it's capturing it, but this actually feels so fluid. It maintains the 60 frames whilst kind of doing as much of the 4K as possible. Now I'm almost certain that it is messing around resolutions, it's switching resolutions up. However, you don't notice it in the same way you do performance mode on PlayStation 5. So that's a big tick for the Pro. It feels optimized. It's the first time I've used that word talking about 7 Rebirth. As you can see here on those Moogle statues, some of the details are drawing in as we go. It's the first time I discovered the Pro Moogle quest, even though I had completed the game. So you've still got a little bit of texture draw in, but I would say it's no different to a lot of kind of stuff you see in other engines. I play a lot of Rainbow Six Siege, and even on 4K, high detail assets, they still draw in detail. But here we have a good long draw view, getting a good look at the detail. The foliage is there on the ground. This is very similar to the footage they put out in the trailer for the PS5 Pro. Now, again, is it worth upgrading for this detail? I don't know. I'm so happy that my second playthrough of Rebirth will be on this mode though. I think that's going to be a really good thing for me. I'll enjoy the game a lot more. It shouldn't be choppy. I suspect there are still issues that will be ironed out. I mean, they've dropped a big 1.6 gigabyte patch this week for these modes, and I'm sure there's more textures. But there's no kind of transition between combat and the world map here. Like sometimes in the previous modes, you'd notice a lack of fluidity switching between the two, and now combat does flow. In many ways, I think it's more reminiscent of that optimized PS4 Pro experience for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. A little bit of practice in my combat, as you'll see, but just capturing. Now, I thought it'd be interesting just to have a look at one more thing, which is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC. I must have captured this footage on PC like repeatedly. You've seen some other videos. It's quite funny. But again, what we're going to have a look at in a minute is going to be 4K 60 frames, and that's running on my system, which is RTX 4090. Lots of RAM and all that stuff. I won't bore you with it, but essentially I'm not sure without mods you could get a better graphical fidelity. And again, to kind of the only thing I've done with this is downgrade it from HDR to SDR to make sure the color balance comes, but it's very bright, very sharp. I thought when I was playing Rebirth the first time that Cloud's face looks off. Not so sure it does. The difference is as stark as it was now between Rebirth and Remake. However, I still feel on PC it is a little bit more optimized than consoles, a little bit smoother and sharper, and I am waiting for the Rebirth mod, the Rebirth release PC to come down the tracks. I probably expect that early next year, because I know that Square Enix obviously want to maximize profits, and the exclusivity on PS5 was a lot shorter than it was for Remake. And of course, they've still not landed on Xbox. I don't think I'll be doing anything to review them on Xbox when it drops there, as it invariably should do if Square Enix really do want to hit profits. So anyway, that's a day one look at the PS5 Pro running Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I hope it's been interesting. I hope you've got something from it, even if it's just to scratch your own curiosity and know that, yeah, you don't need to upgrade. My overall kind of takeaway is you probably don't need to upgrade unless you really, really just want to get those extra frames and that little bit extra experience. Now, I don't play a lot of games. Like I say, I play a lot of Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, weirdly, and the Final Fantasy VII Remake project. So for me, those two things, I probably see just about enough value that I want my limited gaming time to be the highest quality. others will vary. Now, I've played the original Final Fantasy VII on tablet, the original PlayStation, the PlayStation 2, PS3 re-release, the PS4, and then the PC. So I've played that game across so many formats, and it really doesn't change much unless you start putting in stuff like the mod, especially the Shinra Archaeology mod, which is my next playthrough planned. There does feel like a lot of kind of format platform gaps. So I still think that probably the best experience will be PC if the port of Rebirth is good and optimized, like the Final Fantasy 15 port was very optimized. The 7 PC remake release, still not there. However, looks better than it did on day one, and I've got a video about that. Okay guys, until next one, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this ramble and enjoyed the general Final Fantasy VII ambience, and we will see you soon.